Kentucky basketball is looking to add on to their loaded 2025 recruiting class, and they've just made the top 10 for one of the best players in the entire country.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be discussing five-star Nate Ament, who has included Kentucky in his top 10. Could the Cats go after him? What about Caleb Wilson? Also on today's episode, going to be breaking down why Kentucky to the ACC could be an interesting thought experiment. Going to break that down, as well as, finally, let's talk about John Calipari. He's failing. There's no other way to put it. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the show. And if you're listening on podcast, would love to have you subscribe there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Five-star Nate Ament has included Kentucky in his top 10. Technically, he's considering 11 schools according to Joe 3's on Tipton, and they are as follows: Arkansas, BYU, Duke, Georgetown, Kansas State, Kentucky, Louisville, Notre Dame, Tennessee, Alabama, and Texas. Again, according to Joe Tipton of On3. This is the number 3 player in the 2025 class, number 4 player according to 24/7 Sports and their composite ratings, second power forward in the class, number 1 player out of the state of Virginia. 6'9", 185-pound player. We've talked about him on the show before, but in case you need a refresher, this is one of the best spot-up scorers, especially for his height and his position in the entire country. He's got a very, very solid jump shot. He can work into the paint as well. One of the big issues I think that I see out of his game, and this is something that actually I think 24/7 Sports notes in their scouting report, is he's not a very physical prospect. Again, he's 6'9", 185, not a huge wingspan, and he really is more of like a spot-up scoring, I don't want to say Kevin Durant type of player, but you see that in the way that he likes to shoot and handle the basketball. There's not a ton of strength. There's not a ton of get at you when it comes to driving to the rim. There are things that he needs to develop, but obviously, the spot-up scoring is very, very solid. According to 24/7 Sports, he posted a 47, 42, and 90 shooting split in the 3 SSB this season. He has shot the ball incredibly well. He's a great free throw shooter. And this is somebody, whenever I watch him, I understand that he is 6'9", but I see somebody that you would want to play, honestly, at the wing. I don't think you play this kid at power forward. I think you play him at small forward because of the fact that I don't know if there's going to be a ton of room to grow physically whenever he gets to college. Sure, he could put on 20 pounds or so by the time he gets to college, but because of the way that he likes to play the game and because of the way that he shoots, I would honestly have him higher up in my rotation. I think for me, it would be more about getting him comfortable as a scorer whenever he transitions to college, instead of trying to get him to learn how to play a more physical game down low, although obviously that's a part of developing. But again, I think there are other ways that you can really focus on his game here. This is something specifically that I pulled from 24/7 Sports. He has a high release and a soft touch with range that extends out to the three-point line and yet is still learning to consistently get balanced in his lower body. The ball hits his hand incredibly softly when he puts it on the floor, and he's starting to show more creativity off the bounce as well. There are even some flashes of floor vision, passing ability, and with both hands. He also tends to play a bit upright, raising his center of gravity, which makes it that much easier for him to get bumped or angled off the line of his drive. Right now, Ament can also struggle to finish through contact at a high-level game. Despite that, he shows a real ability to get his own shot off. This is somebody that has really asserted himself as he has come up through the different circuits that he has played, 24/7 Sports also notes what's glaring about Ament is just how much potential he has to get better. He needs to get stronger, keep getting more aggressive, polish all aspects of his skill set, but the tools are in place for him to evolve into a smooth 6'9" plus perimeter forward who is a true 3-rank scoring threat. The bottom line is that there may be some 5-star prospects who are more capable of dominating a game today, but he has a high long-term upside as much as anybody in the 2025 class. That's why he's a top 5 prospect. This is a kid that can clearly shoot and has the ability to develop into something special. I don't necessarily think that this is a hit or miss type player because of his ability to, again, knock down the 3 ball at such a high rate. And if you get him in a Mark Pope system, I do not think that there is a single college out there that would benefit him more offensively when it came to elevating his game. There is not a single program out there that could develop him and make him look better on the court with the way that Kentucky likes to run their offense. They would also improve his ability to play make. They would improve his ability to create. They would improve his ability to handle the ball. The three-point shooting is going to come naturally with the way that Kentucky wants to run their offense. Nate Ament would be perfect for Kentucky. Again, he's considering 10 other schools outside of Kentucky. He had a comment about every single one of them to On3 and Joe Tipton, and this is what he had to say about Kentucky. Quote, "I mean, the first couple of games for them have been insane. For Coach Mark Pope to come in as the new head coach and keep Kentucky going like it was with Coach Cal is insane to see something like that. Coach Pope has them playing fast, putting up a lot of points, and shooting a lot of threes." He also talked a little bit about Arkansas and talked about the fact that it's been tough for them this season because they started the year with a bunch of injuries. They're in the SEC, which has 10 teams in the top 25 right now, so that's crazy. They're battling out, yada, 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 yada. Arkansas sucks. So Nate Ament, I think, not only would be perfect, but I'm really glad that Kentucky is continuing to kind of lean into this recruiting process. And I guess the final question here is, what about Caleb Wilson? Right? What is Kentucky doing about him? When is his announcement going to come? According to several people in the media circuit that have posted this behind paywalls and both on Twitter, I believe Adam Zagoria was the first one to report this. Caleb Wilson's probably going to announce tomorrow, so I'm recording this Thursday. Friday, January 17th, he's going to probably announce a commitment date. That's going to be happening during Hoop Hall. I expect him to say something before Hoop Hall ends on Monday, which is another circuit where a bunch of big-time recruits will be playing on ESPN and stuff. What about Caleb Wilson? Well, I think, again, there's no reason to panic. There's no reason to have any major concern for me personally. I still think Kentucky's going to get him. You can read into whatever you hear online. You can read into whatever you see as far as what's going on Twitter. I still think Kentucky's in the driver's seat for this one. We'll see how it shakes out. North Carolina obviously pushing. But if you don't get Caleb Wilson, Nate Ament, I think, would be an absolutely perfect player to have. Honestly, he'd be a great player to have whether you get Wilson or not. So that's my thought on Nate Ament. That's my thought on Caleb Wilson. Let me know what you think in the comments below. All right, Kentucky to the ACC. This is something I've seen thrown around here over the past week or so. I want to dive into why this could, in theory, work, but it's not within our reality. It would still be very interesting nonetheless. Going to dive into that in just a second. Before I do it, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is super easy to navigate. It's got a wide variety of bets to keep every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team or you're just looking to add some extra excitement to the NFL playoffs. FanDuel has got you covered. I would highly encourage you guys, go check out FanDuel, take a look at props, yardage totals, touchdowns, all kinds of stuff for obviously the Ravens this weekend, obviously the Chiefs, some big-time games coming on. I would love for you to go check out FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started again with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. You can make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook and an official partner of the NFL. All right, continuing along here on the Thursday edition of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. I really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. Again, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. If you have any questions or comments for the show, I would love to answer them here for you. So if you've got comments, leave them in the YouTube comments below. If you're listening on podcast, at Locked On UK on Twitter is where you can find me. Okay, we talked a little bit about Nate Ament, Kentucky making his top 11, top 10 theoretically, but this is something interesting I wanted to dive into here today, and I want your thoughts on it if you're watching or listening. I've seen several people on Twitter talk about Kentucky moving conferences for one reason or another, whether it be logical or illogical. Just ridiculous things have been thrown out there. But Kentucky to the ACC has been something that I've been kind of mulling over for the past few days. Could that, in theory, work? And if it did, how would it look? So I have a couple of different thoughts on this. First of all, I think that the rivalries in the SEC that Kentucky has would be incredibly tough to give up. But there are several really, really high-profile, big-name teams that you have serious rivalries with in the ACC. Playing them year in and year out in a conference schedule would be incredible. Absolutely incredible. So I went and looked. I think Big Blue history is a great place to go and kind of break this down. You can take a look at what every single ACC team has done against Kentucky. So I'm going to walk through this here with you real quick. Kentucky's never played Boston College, despite them probably having had an opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament or something in the past. At least I would have thought. They've never played. California has only played Kentucky twice, and the most recent game was in 1988. Clemson is a team that Kentucky has played 17 times. They're 12-5. Obviously, they played them in Clemson earlier this season. Lost that game. I think that would be a fun team to compete against consistently. Duke is a no-brainer. 13-11. Or the Kentucky Wildcats obviously played them earlier this year and won an incredible game. Florida State, Kentucky is 6-2. They've not played them since 1993. That was on the way to the Final Four with Rick Pitino and Mashburn, for those of you that remember that. Georgia Tech is a team that Kentucky has actually played quite a bit, believe it or not. They've played 57-16. That's the record Kentucky has. They've played, they haven't played since 2020. But that's a team that Kentucky has some history with, alongside somebody like Duke, alongside somebody like Clemson, that you could start to build a rivalry with because they're right there, not a huge trip away from me. Now you get to start to see where maybe some rivalries could build. Louisville, no-brainer, Kentucky's biggest rival. You see Duke, you see Georgia Tech, you see Clemson, you see Louisville. Things are starting to add up here. Kentucky could have a lot of history with this conference because they have some serious history with a lot of these programs already. Miami only played 5 times. Obviously, you guys remember the game from last year where Kentucky just took it to that Hurricanes team offensively. 4-1, Kentucky is against the Hurricanes. Interesting note here, Kentucky's actually played Miami of Ohio 26 times. They're 22-4 against the Red Hawks, but only 5 times against the Canes, which is interesting. North Carolina, Kentucky with a negative record against the Tar Heels, 18-25, played in 2023. Another phenomenal game that Kentucky ended up winning. So again, Duke, Georgia Tech, Louisville, UNC. Kentucky's only played NC State 4 times, but that's a team I would love to see Kentucky play more. I don't know why these two teams don't play more. I think that would be really fun to get some home and homes with the Wolfpack. Notre Dame, another team Kentucky has history with, 43-21, are the Cats, 2021. That's a game that made me want to pull my hair out. I think that's the first game that I realized that I was into this, man. I was freaking out, frustrated with the way that Cal and everything was operating. We'll talk about him in a minute. Pitt, you've only played 6 times. You haven't played them since 98, 4-2 is your record. That's a team I would love to see Kentucky play more. I don't care for SMU. I don't care for Stanford. You played those teams that combined, 8 times. You've only played Stanford 3 since you haven't played them since 09. You haven't played SMU since 84. Don't care about either of them. Syracuse, you've played them, get this, you've played Syracuse 11 times. Only 11, and you haven't played them since 2000. Another team where I go, why haven't they played more? This would be absolutely incredible to see Kentucky and Syracuse do a home and home. Virginia, 6-3, haven't played them since 2002. Virginia Tech, 4-1, haven't played them since 2017. And then Wake Forest, you're 5-0, haven't played them since 2010. I want to go through here. The teams with the biggest rivals I highlighted in bold in my notes. Duke, or rivalries, I should say. Duke, Georgia Tech, Louisville, North Carolina, Notre Dame. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major rivals. I think you have 5 major rivals in the SEC. And you can kind of interchange this. If you think Alabama's more of a rival than Mississippi State, I think that's fair. You could interchange those possibly. So you could go Bama, Tennessee, Florida, Vanderbilt, and LSU. I think you have major rivalries, historic rivalries with all 5 of those teams. You could throw State in there as well. Of course, State hasn't beaten us at home. Again, We're going on 19 straight games. So we're kind of becoming numb to that. But Auburn, Ole Miss, Georgia, teams that Kentucky has played, but it's not like a serious major rivalry. Kentucky's beaten Georgia a lot. I think it's their third most beaten team all time, fourth most. And then you have teams that I just frankly, you may say, well, the ACC doesn't have a ton of teams that Kentucky can like get into. Again, the SEC has several teams that frankly Kentucky has either not really played or I just don't care about. Texas A&M, do not care to play them. If John Calipari did not go to Arkansas, I wouldn't really care to play Arkansas, to be honest with you. South Carolina is a team that I don't care to play. Texas and Oklahoma are two teams that Kentucky has virtually zero history with. And then Missouri is another team that I can see that. I could see it maybe a little bit with Arkansas too, but again, it's teams that I just don't care to play, especially over a team like NC State. Like it doesn't make a huge difference to me. Florida State would be another team that I would rather play outside of a Texas or an Oklahoma. Not necessarily because they're better or worse, but because it's just like I would see more value in that game. I think Clemson would be a more interesting game than South Carolina. That's just me personally. I don't know. You guys can sound off on this in the comments below. I highlighted in blue here the teams I would love to see Kentucky play more. Clemson, NC State, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Wake Forest. Those are all five teams I would love to see Kentucky play. If they move to the ACC, I think that you would lose, obviously, Florida and Tennessee. Really, those are the two big ones that you would lose. But, man, having Duke, North Carolina, you're getting also Louisville, your biggest rival in conference. I think things would matter just as much to Kentucky. I think you would see just as much history made and continued on with some of the historic games that have already been played between some major ACC teams and Kentucky. I think this would be fun. This would be super fun. On top of this, Kentucky's path to the NCAA tournament would be easier. You would see Kentucky simply finish with a better overall record, and you would see them have an easier time in conference play, and you would see them have a higher seed because of that. That's just the way it would shake out year in and year out. The ACC is at this point, it's so weird to say, it's a weaker conference than the SEC. It's bizarre considering kind of what I grew up in, with some really, really good teams coming out of, obviously, the Atlantic Coastal Conference. But you, again, sound off, guys. Let me know what you think. I think that by as far as rivalries go, this makes sense to me. But the thing that makes it impossible to work, and you don't really have to, there's no reason to like flesh this out as opposed to like the reasons why it wouldn't. There's a simple reason why it would. There's a simple reason why it wouldn't. And that's because Kentucky makes too much money in the SEC right now. You also have to consider football. It's a massive moneymaker for this university. More so than the basketball program, which is really hard to believe, but it's just simply by volume. There's more people going to football games. There's a lot more money invested into it, as far as like resources and stuff like that. There's more money coming out of it as far as what you get out of your resources and stuff like that. Like there's just more to be had because there are more people. It wouldn't work because Kentucky wouldn't get the money that they currently do. There's no reason, zero reason to leave a conference that is paying you as much as it is. Obviously, Duke, UNC, Louisville would be great. That would be phenomenal. But you can't leave because you're making a lot of dough where you're at right now. So let me know what you would think. Would you want to see Kentucky move to the ACC? Do you think it's ridiculous? I think that makes sense outside of money. In a perfect world where every conference doles out the same amount of money, I wouldn't be mad at this move. I wouldn't be angry at this move. Again, Florida and Tennessee losing that would suck, but getting North Carolina and Duke as conference games, I think that would be super fun. All right, it's time to talk about it, ladies and gentlemen. John Calipari is failing. In Kentucky, they're in as good of a position as they possibly could be right now. Let's dive into it here in just a second. Before I do it, though, I'll tell you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the place to get real money sports action. They've got over 10 million members and billions in winnings. Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or the regular season, Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all of the football action. Now, it's playoff time, obviously, in the NFL, and there's no better way to get in on the action with Prize Picks, and here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players, and if your picks hit, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right, 1,000 times your shmoney just by making a few simple picks. For me, and I'm all about the hot takes this season. Of course, this week on Prize Picks, I'm looking at Lamar Jackson for more than 250 passing yards and Travis Kelce for more than 70 receiving yards against the Texans. I think that Lamar's going to have to air it out if they're going to have a chance to beat the Bills, and I think Kelce's going to go off because that's what happens with the Chiefs in playoff games. Yes, duh. And super fun and easy to predict, easy to play. Plus, with Prize Picks and their flex play, you can still double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Super simple. Very fun. With the app, you still get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Get ready to run your game this football season by downloading the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. You'll get $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. That's right, you get $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. That is Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, wrapping up the Thursday edition of Locked On Kentucky. There's no other way to slice it. John Calipari is failing at Arkansas. Some of you in my comments have started to ask me, hey, you seen what Arkansas media is saying about John Calipari, about Kentucky, just in general, about Kentucky fans? Are you watching the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, Lance? Are you seeing what John Neighbors has to say right now? Yeah. I'm seeing what's happening over there in Fayetteville. It's gotten to a point for me where it's not like a ha-ha, gotcha. It's not like a, oh, you suck and I'm laughing at it. A former Hall of Fame coach that took Kentucky to incredible heights is just falling apart right now. And it's for all of the reasons that you and I have been discussing for going on 4 years now. The man simply is just watching the game pass him by right now. In terms of schematics, in terms of execution, in game, recruiting is becoming more of a moot point because of the fact that the transfer portal exists now and NIL exists. Things are being spread around, I think, a little more evenly. And when I say spread around a little more evenly, I don't mean financially. I mean in terms of quality of overall team. You can get a team full of transfers and you can watch them succeed with the right coaching. Case in point, Mark Pope. It's not all about the 5-star freshman anymore. Putting together a team of 18-year-olds that can out-athlete everybody. You can't do that anymore. And Calipari is an old dog that clearly, at this point in the season, cannot learn new tricks. Again, we're going on 3 straight years on my show of me reiterating this over and over and over again. I've continued to say, you can't win it all with a bunch of 5-star freshmen. I've continued to say, this coaching staff is not doing their job. They're not scouting, and they're not planning as well as they could against opponents that, frankly, they should beat on paper. This is something that I think John Neighbors said this on his Locked On Razorbacks podcast. He was like, we weren't expecting for this team to win a national championship. Maybe there was a small portion of the Arkansas fan base that was expecting that. But that was we were expecting a team that at the very least just made the NCAA tournament. And if I'm in his shoes, I agree. On paper, this is a team that should have made the tournament. Should make the tournament. It's still obviously on the table, duh. But yeah, they look horrible. 4 games into conference play. First time Cal was 0-3 in conference play, period. Now the first time he's 0-4. Lost to LSU. Watch the way the end of that game played out. It is modern Cal to a T. Stuff was not being ran effectively. You had players whiffing layups. You had confidence shaken. You know why they were missing layups? Because it's a bunch of freaking freshmen. They've lost 3 straight. Things are falling apart. They don't have a coach that can steer them in the right direction. He hasn't been able to do this for going on half a freaking decade. Yes, there have been moments in the regular season where things just pop. It's because he's got 5-star freshmen. They're going to wake up at some point. This game against Missouri, by the way, this Saturday, probably a perfect time for that to happen and for some confidence to be built back, only for you to get pimp slapped here in a couple games when you play Kentucky. That's how it's shaping up to play out. And I'm not saying that from like a position of arrogance. Like that's just like if it was insert Auburn on your schedule, insert a Tennessee February 1st. It's just an opponent that on paper is better than you, is what I'm saying. Like you get some momentum back, and then you get bullied. Boogie Fland is a fun player to watch, but he can't carry a team. Adu Thiero is a really fun player to watch, but he can't carry a team. He doesn't have enough bag. He is a tank, and he'd be great for Mark Pope. He would have been great this year. Zvonimir Ivasic is a really good stretch forward, but he's not physical enough to protect the rim, and he can't win the game alone. Wagner has seen his three-point shot go down, and he is struggling a little bit offensively, shooting sub 50% from 2 as well. Carter Knox and Billy Richmond have not contributed to this team as much as maybe they were expected to contribute to Kentucky, at least in my mind, whenever they were still committed. Janelle Davis has been worthless relative to his relative to his transfer portal expectations. Cal hasn't used him. He has taken one of the college basketball's best players at Florida Atlantic, and he's made him worthless. His offensive rating last season was 114. That's good. That's not great, but it's good. He was shooting 41% from 3. This year, offensive rating tanked to 99.9%. I cannot remember the last time that I have seen a player's offensive rating dip that dramatically with this much of a sample size. We're over halfway through the season, by the way. 35.3% from 3. Went from 41 to 35. 7% drop for a kid that you're not even using. The roster is being mismanaged. The team is not executing in the spots that they should. They're not shooting well at the rim. Get this. Through 4 games of SEC play, Arkansas is shooting 41.8% inside the arc. 41.8 inside the arc. 16th in the SEC. 26% from 3. There is no other way to slice it. Again, John Calipari is failing. They suck. They suck. Analytically, they stink. And it doesn't seem like there's a darn thing Cal's going to do about it. I feel for Arkansas. I am frustrated for Arkansas. I saw it coming. I knew what was happening. This was a team that I said to anybody that would listen to me, and I didn't really say a ton of this on air, but I said it to a ton of people online. This is a team that can't shoot. They can't shoot the basketball, and they're going to struggle because their defense is not going to be able to carry them despite bringing in guys like Jonas Adu. It's not going to happen. Coaching, you're not getting that. You are number 50 in the net. You're number 47 on KenPom. You're projected to go 17-14, 6-12. Pulling up the bracket matrix here, Arkansas is now projected to miss the field. Out of the 59 brackets out there from either big analytics sites or places like CBS or ESPN, only 18 of them currently have Arkansas on the field of 68. And some of these haven't been updated since they lost to LSU. I feel for Arkansas. I hate it. Cal's falling apart. It kind of sucks to watch, given what he was to this program for 15-ish years. That being said, Kentucky caught a massive break. They caught a massive break with him leaving when he did. They also, seems like, pump the brakes a little bit on this. They also caught a massive break with Mark Pope being hired over Scott Drew, over Dan Hurley, over Bruce Pearl, over Shaka Smart. Right now, as of today, January 16th, year of our Lord 2025, it seems like Mark Pope is just as good, if not better, than them, all of these candidates, in a variety of ways. He fits Kentucky better. That's probably the biggest thing. He fits us better. He gets us, and he understands it, and it's not an act. This is a genuinely good human being that on top of it is also like loved by his community because of who he is. Did you see the video of him talking to that the fan at the Mississippi State game? Walked all the way up to the freaking top of the arena to go sit down and talk with him. That's what you want to see out of a head coach that cares. He clearly cares. He's incredibly smart. You see that with the Columbia stuff. You see that with the way that he's coaching offense. Right now, Thursday, January 16th, he's better than Scott Drew. Right now, he's just as good as Dan Hurley. By the way, that UConn team, they can't play defense right now. Just as much as Kentucky is struggling with it. Analytically, Kentucky's just as good. Which is kind of weird to say. Actually, I need to go look where Connecticut's 26th on KenPom, 108 in defensive efficiency. Kentucky 16th on KenPom, 74th. Obviously, things can change, but again, we got very upset with Mitch Barnhart and the way that this coaching search was handled. So, some of us did. I mean, obviously, I was bewildered with kind of like how it shook out. If Kentucky gets to the Sweet 16 or beyond, we may need to throw a parade for that man. I mean, seriously. Slam, dunk, home run higher. It feels like right now. We'll see. But Calipari, he's falling apart. And Kentucky, for some of it, despite being human, despite being vulnerable, is in a much better position. Infinitely better position right now. We'll see what happens, but right now, Kentucky's in a much better spot. February 1st, one of the game, if not the game of the year. Cannot wait. Doesn't matter how bad Arkansas is playing. You know they're going to get up for that crap. Let me know what you think in the comments below. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hey, you can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.